Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the Rapido monthly update for October 2025. My name is Megan Weldon. I'm a product manager on the Rapido team here at Claravit. My email address is there, and I do welcome you to reach out. I'm happy to connect with you about your questions around Rapido and resource sharing. So let's connect. Today's session will follow a familiar format. First, covering some updates maybe relevant to the community, hopefully of interest to all of you. The release highlights, speaking to highlights of the November 2025 release, followed by a few frequently asked questions, after which I will be checking the chat and the Q&A to address any questions that you put forward today. And if the questions are beyond the scope of what I can answer today, we will connect beyond today's session through email to work on your questions. Okay, getting into community updates for today. So a community update for you all is the growth of the community. When I put the slides together, we were at 262 live libraries. We might have a couple more since then. But what's exciting about this growing number is it's more than 100 libraries having completed implementations since the start of the year. And that growth is happening in a variety of places, with implementations having been completed now in Australia, in Belgium, Hong Kong, United Kingdom, and United States this year. With the growth of the community, we're seeing an interest in the community creating new connections through the use of pods. Some recent pod creations include the Australia Hybrid Pod, which is an exciting pod that connects those libraries in Australia who are using Rapido with their colleagues who are using Alma resource sharing so that they can do their workflow and the solutions that they want to be doing that workflow within and manage those connections. Additionally, in addition to the Australia Hybrid Pod, there's the New South Wales Hybrid Pod, which just creates a geographical pod for Rapido libraries to prioritize their ranking of the pods, meaning if your library was in that region, you could put that pod at a higher priority than a broader regional pod, which allows your requests to be filled by those partners who are closer to you if that material is available and lendable by those partners before it would then go out to partners who are in that broader pod. Similarly, within the US, we saw the creation of a US Midwest pod, again, to support those regional partnerships that you might prioritize ahead of using partners who are farther away from you, thinking about shipping those physical items. In addition to the US Midwest pod, and another pod we saw created in the US was the US Hybrid Pod, like the Australia Hybrid Pod, connecting those libraries who are using Rapido with their colleagues who are using Alma resource sharing. On that theme of growth within the Rapido community, we had the first library in Belgium go live with Ghent University Library choosing Rapido and joining the community. Their colleagues speak to the service being transparent for their users while streamlining workflows for our staff. A similar experience or familiar experience that many of you are used to, but it's very exciting to see the first library in Belgium using Rapido. Another great announcement that we saw since our last webinar was the 25th million Rapid ILL request was placed and filled by the Ex Libris resource sharing community. So that's pretty incredible, very exciting to see that there has now been 25 million total requests filled through this network, with 5 million of those requests taking place since January 2023. So there's been a lot of growth in recent years in the community and in the volume of requesting that we're seeing within the community. Those requests are seeing a 9.5 hour average turnaround time, across over 850 libraries in over 36 countries. Kansas State University was one of the partners involved in the 25th million request, and so they shared a sentiment about how wonderful it is to be a part of that community and the impact that Rapid ILL has for their library. Okay, one more update for the community. You probably also saw this through the listserv, but wanted to clarify it here. The results from the Curve 2025 voting have come through and been reported by the working group. So these developments will take place within the 2026 calendar year as a part of the 2026 roadmap. These developments cover a variety of things. The first of them being a change to the resource sharing form so that users who are filling out the form for requests that will be delivered digitally do not have to select a pickup location. There is also a development on the way that allows the borrowing and lending library to send a bit more information in an additional field than what is currently available. Then there's going to be the capability to perform that refine action on digital article requests. That's in the end user experience during the practice of placing requests. The stop repeat requests from another library if the item is rejected for copyright compliance is a part of that lending workflow that you'll see a development for in 2026. And then some additions to the Rapido API to expand on the information available in the API for libraries who are using that. In addition to developments that we can expect to see in 2026, there was another highlight to share with you today, and that is the Known Issues Portal. The Known Issues Portal was announced as available for Alma at Luna earlier this year, and at Igloo this year, the announcement was made that there is now Rapido on the Known Issues Portal. You can access the Known Issues Portal through Support Center where you place your tickets, and you'll see Rapido issues that have been reviewed for publication here to have greater visibility about already known issues in the Rapido community. Okay, the release highlights for the November release are primarily quite a few functionality components related to self-registration functionality. So I'm going to do a thorough dive on this functionality for you and speak to what's new along the way. So what is self-registration functionality? When we speak to self-registered functionality, we're meaning partners who exist as an email type partner in association with a user record with the same information, though the records are linked. Why was self-registration functionality first created? It was created in partnership with libraries who wanted to be able to lend to partners who lack a means to submit resource sharing requests through another resource sharing solution. Examples might include library as your library as the lender wanting to lend to law firms, government agencies, independent researchers, a museum, or lending to public libraries or other small libraries that lack a resource sharing solution that cannot speak through standards to other resource sharing solutions. There might be a variety of types of partners that you support in this way, but this is really what this functionality is all about, is your capacity to continue to lend to these partners and get those requests from these partners. How does that really work? So once the partner is registered, the partner uses the patron user credentials to log into your discovery and place resource sharing requests via your library's discovery for your library's items only. Then those requests show in your library's lending task list for processing and fulfillment within your lending workflows, with the partner being the registered partner record, with the partner type being an email partner. So going to expand next on what's new in regards to this functionality. So what's new with the November release for self-registered partners? So previously in configuration, there was an additional step that we saw as redundant. So we've streamlined that process. So there's just one less checkbox for you to have to designate in this configuration for enabling self-registration functionality. Additionally, an additional change is previously, if the self-registration functionality was enabled and the registration form was presented for those partners to register with, the default was presenting two different types of registration forms, one being individual and the other being organization. Now the form can be customized so that you can choose if you present both of these, and if not, which one of them you're presenting. And that is done through within the configuration component. When you define which user group is associated with that form, you select the not applicable user group to say that that is not a form you're going to be using. If you select not applicable for both of those, that's going to impact, users' ability to use that form. So you're really making that selection only for one of those forms. Additionally, self-registered partners have new, the way that you create those partners has expanded. So previously, those partners could only be created via the registration form. So if you enabled that form, your partners could register through it, or staff would have to go through that registration form on behalf of the partners. Now your library can choose whether or not you present that registration form within your discovery, because you can create these partners on the back end via the add partner action within fulfillment within your partners. Additionally, there is another backend method that is creating the partners via create partner API. So if you have a database of your partners somewhere that you want to then import those partners into your Rapido environment, you can create those partners via the create partner API. To either of these new methods, your partner needs to know about the creation of this partnership, this partner record rather, and their username and passwords, their credentials for logging into your discovery to place those requests with you. They are notified if your library enables that welcome partner letter, which is a new letter now with the November release. And of course, like any other letter, you can customize that. So now that you have a bit of perspective about what this functionality is, what are the use cases, and what's new, I want to give you a deep dive into how you set this up, what the variables are, and then give you insight into what that then looks like in full circle as far as its use. So the underlying configurations for self-registration functionality really center around the ability to assign and the need to assign a unique user group. The recommendation is to create a new user group specifically for these self-registered partners. My example here is the user group external users for RS. And that's really so that you can define that user group's experience and privileges within your library, because it is a unique user to your undergrads or graduates or faculty or whatever kind of users you already have in place at your library. So creating a new user group really lets you have a separate experience for them and fine-tune the configurations around these users. So you would create a new user group within configuration within user management. You assign this user group a record type. It should be a public record type. And you do that under configuration, user management, user details, user record type, user group. So there we see that my external users for RS user group that I created is assigned the public user record type. Additionally, this user group that you create should have a patron role. This can be done automatically via configurations. There's a role assignment rules that you can set up, or you can do that manually. But the user group needs to have the patron role for this to work, the self-registration functionality to work for them. Then the fulfillment unit rules that the user group is associated with needs to allow resource sharing. So you can find the relevant fulfillment unit at your institution, select the rule type of borrowing resource sharing, and you may need to create a new rule for this user group. It really depends on your underlying configurations today. So here we have created a new fulfillment unit rule for the user group, and we've added a new set of terms of use that we've created for this user group. What's important when assigning a terms of use for this user group is that terms of use allow resource sharing requesting value uses the policy allow resource sharing requests, and the personal delivery option delivers items only to an office address. So those are two important variables to consider when assigning the term of use for this user group. Then we have to think about display logic rules for this user group, and this is really where having the unique user group is going to be helpful, because the discovery experience that you want to create is going to be different for them, or we anticipate that it will be very different for them than your other users. For example, you want to hide the resource sharing request option for when availability by your institution is true for most of your other user groups that you present, or this is a common decision at other library. Many libraries for their other user groups. You might have variables or variations rather of this rule, but you want to allow this user group to see resource sharing requests when availability by the institution is true, whereas you hide that functionality or hide that service from the other user groups. So here we see that our external for RS user group is not in this list. On the other hand, we want to hide all of the other services for this user group, meaning there are external users for RS user group that was created isn't going to get booking requests or hold requests or other types of request services. So that's the where their experience is probably going to be very different from how your other user groups interact with your discovery, and thus having a unique user group for these users is going to be very helpful in being able to create appropriate display logic rules for them. This is the holistic underlying functionality for setting up those self-registered users. Then what does it actually look like to enable self-registration functionality at your library? Now that you've done all of this, you can go into configuration, resource sharing, configuration, borrower self-registration, and then there you'll see that default user configuration, and you assign that user group. So sorry, this is an inconsistent screenshot with the other ones. My other example here of the external users for RS, I would probably want to select external users for RS for my user group here. But whatever name you've used for your user group that you've created for this functionality is what you would select here. If you're creating these as these accounts for individuals, or you're creating these accounts for organizations, you could put that user group for both of them. Or if you're only creating one type of account, you can then hit not applicable for the other, and that will then determine which form presents for those users, because there are a few additional fields for that organization type versus the individual. Okay, then what else is there to know in regards to configurations related to these partners? The other key piece of configurations is knowing that there is an alert that can get triggered on those lending requests by these partners. So that alert is enabled by default, and that is the new request created for partner. So you don't have to turn this alert on, it should already be on, but if you're a library that has gone in and customized alerts in various ways, it may be worth checking to make sure that you enable this alert if somebody disabled it in the past. What that alert does then is anytime a new request is created by one of these self-registered partners, that alert is already on that request, which that then allows staff to facet and create a set based on that alert, so they can find all of the requests that are created by these self-registered partners in case they want to review those requests or do some additional checking before processing them. However, even though this alert is enabled by default, you can deselect the alert at the partner level, meaning maybe there's a library that you don't need this alert to be triggered, that you don't need to be triggering this alert. You can go to that partner record itself and then deselect new request alert on that partner record. So you can leave that alert on, and meaning any new partners that get created, their first request will trigger that alert. But then once staff review that partner record, they can choose to deselect that alert for that particular partner. And then those requests would flow into the normal workflow as opposed to maybe in a set based on that alert. That is an option you have available to you in thinking about the capacity for using the alert to support whatever workflow you want to be implementing at your library. Okay, now I'm getting a little bit more into what's new with the November release. And so thinking about what's new with the November release in context to these configurations is the means that these partners are created. Again, all of these all of these pathways result in the creation of a partner record and a user record, and all methods rely on these previously reviewed self-registration functionalities. So all of these steps are important to and necessary to the creation of these self-registered partners, regardless of which of these three options that you use to create those partner records. So again, those options are those partners register via the form and discovery. Those partners are created via the create partner action on the back end, or those partners are created via the create partner API. I'm going to give you a bit more of a visual in regards to these first two here in these next slides. So if you want to enable your partners to be able to register through discovery, you can do that under configure, discovery, display configuration, configure views. Then on the general tab, you will see the option to, if display Rapido functionality is checked, you'll see the option to select allows self-registration checkbox. If you select that allows self-registration checkbox, then your users are going to be, or your partners are going to be able to discover the option to self-register within your discovery. You can customize that form that is presented to them through configuration, resource sharing configuration, borrower self-registration, and then select self-registration form customization. Then you would get this screen, and you can use this screen to relabel the fields on that form to match language used by your library. Then this is what form is presented. So this is the form that they can access within Discovery. I'll have a few more screenshots here on the next slide. So this image on the left shows the option if you've allowed to enable the individual and organization form to be presented. Your user then would toggle between either of those to select which one is the correct form for themselves to use. If, for example, you chose the individual was not applicable and you were only presenting the organization type form to your end users, they would see the image on the right with organization being the only option there. And then again, any of those fields, you could have customized the naming of that with that form customization. Then if you're presenting the self-registration form within Discovery, what that looks like is when a library then goes to the login and they haven't yet registered, they select that text, not a member yet, register here. Again, you can customize this label so that that text can read whatever language you want that to read. If you don't like that terminology, not a member yet, register here. New partner libraries, whatever kind of label you feel appropriate to prompt that registration. Then once they select that not a member yet, register here, that form that was on the last screen pops up. They can fill out that form to register. You can have them select, you can put in text for a checkbox agreement to whatever terms it is that you're presenting there, and then they register. Then how they would place their request is once they go to that discovery, again, they would log in with those credentials that were created and go forward. After they've done this form the first time, a partner record is created with that ABC library information that was presented on that last screen. And the partner record is created. And again, we see that by default, that new request alert is enabled for this self-registered partner. Okay, method 2, if you can choose to allow your partners to be able to register through the discovery. But there's another option. You can also create these partners on the back end through the add partner action. So if you're in fulfillment, in partners, you add partner. If you've enabled self-registration, and then when you go to profile type and select an email partner profile type, you'll now see self-registration functionality checkbox for you to discern if you want this partner that's an email partner type to be a self-registered partner, which again means they have a partner record of email type as well as a parallel user record. So you can select to enable self-registration functionality here on this partner record. Then you'll get a few more fields that open up. You're going to have to determine what the username for that user is going to be, what the password is, etc. for creating that parallel user record. Then in this methodology, if you're creating those partners on behalf of your partners through the add partner action, if you've enabled the new welcome partner letter, which is new with the November release, or again, if you did method 3 and created these partners through the API, they would receive that letter that informs them of their new credentials with your library, what their username is, what their password is, link them to their discovery so they know where to go to place those requests. And of course, you can customize this letter in the familiar way of customizing your Rapido letters. So that is a thorough run through of all of the underlying configurations for self-registration and your new capacities for creating those self-registered partners in new ways. So what does this look like in practice after those partners are registered? Coming full picture here, your partner logs into your discovery. They can discover what you've determined they can discover through your display logic rules. They get the resource sharing offer on those items that you hold by your library, determined by those underlying configurations you've already done. They can place that request, and the request was successfully submitted. We can then, as a library, find those requests because an alert is triggered on request by those partners via a set that maybe we're using based on that alert, or within our other lending task lists already within our existing sets. Either way, we will see these requests in the lending workflow. They'll have the alert on them. And if we select that alert, we can see the text to give us that information there. So that's how those requests look in your workflow, and you can then fill those requests through your familiar lending workflows that you're used to today. Next, a couple of frequently asked questions, and then I'll be checking the chat and the Q&A to see what questions you've got for me today. Okay, a few frequently asked questions. Can the APIs that are available in Rapido be used for updates around invoices? Yes, and that is another aspect of the November release, is the added values to the lending request API include the loss damage invoice value, invoice paid, and loss damage invoice paid value. So if you are using your APIs to communicate with for example, a finance management system or another system that you're exporting those request cost fields to, you can then also use that API to update information around the invoices themselves. Okay. With the growth of the community and the new pods that have been created, we're seeing libraries join new pods, which then prompts the question, what configurations are there for me to do after joining a pod? Maybe it's been a while since your library has joined a new pod. There are two minor configurations to think of. One is from the lending perspective and one's from the borrowing perspective. From the lending perspective, under resource sharing, Sorry, under configurations, resource sharing, members, edit, you will then go find yourself able to find the physical item lending policies tab. From here, you will need to attach your participating items to the pod. You can use a already created existing participating item set, meaning if the participating items already include everything that you would want to lend to this new group of partners. You see this pod listed below under physical item lending policies. You select the action menu next to that pod and then grab that name of that participating items and pull it in there. So it reads as that defined set of participating items next to the name of the pod. If you need to create a new set of participating items, you would first add that new set of participating items. For example, maybe with this new pod of partners, I don't know, you're willing to lend more, willing to lend less of your collection, etc. You have that flexibility available to you by defining a new set of participating items and then attaching it to that pod. From the borrowing perspective, you may want to consider the order of your preferred use of these partners, meaning maybe you are in now a new group of pods, you're in pod A as well as B and C. Which of these pods should a request go to first if the item is available from partners in more than one of those pods? Which terms are your preferred terms? Which partners are your preferred partners? You can drag and drop those partners into that order of use that the system should be routing those requests to. You do that again under configuration, resource sharing, members edit, and then within the borrowing policies tab. And you can drag and drop those pods to align in your preferred order of use. So now I've got a few different links to share covering out the breadth of topics from today's conversation. And then I'm going to check while I'm in the chat, check the chat and the Q&A for any questions that you pose today. So I'm going to stop screen sharing here. Grab some links and bear with me as I look to see what questions you might be sharing with us today. Okay. Here into the chat are these links. These links cover a variety of topics. There was a recent webinar put on by a couple of Rapido libraries speaking to their experience. It's a great recording if you're interested in hearing about how other libraries are using Rapido, what their takeaways, what their experience has been. Also a great webinar to share if you have colleagues asking you to have you speak to your Rapido experience and maybe they're interested in other perspectives. That's a great webinar recording to share with them. There's also the link to the November release notes for your review, covering topics of today and beyond. Additionally, a link to the 2026 roadmap, a first glance of items that we are expected to deliver on in the 2026 calendar year. The next link is to the Rapido pods page where you'll see the current pods, see the members, and you can use the form to indicate if you should be added to any of the pods. If you have any questions, please let me know. Then there is the link to the Ghent announcement, the first library in Belgium going live and choosing Rapido. Then University of Melbourne's also joining the Rapido community. There was an announcement about that, so that's very exciting. A couple more announcements here in those links, the 25 million rapid ILL requests being filled, and then the Igloo announcement recapping all of the announcements that were shared at Igloo, including the known issues portal for Rapido. Okay. Checking the chat here. Okay, I see a question about recommended configuration for setting up charges for self-registered partners. Yes, you would use the lending cost rules to define the charges for these partners. Partners is an input parameter for those rules. An additional consideration would be You can present a max cost field for your partners to define when they register with you. If you are choosing to present that self-registration option. So if, for example, your partner's choosing 50 US dollars or 50 Australian dollars, whatever the increment is there, then you can have that information available to you when you are going to hit ship. You would also, there's an alert that can let you know if you're about to ship a request that would exceed a partner's defined max cost there. Let me know if there are additional questions on that self-registered topic or the charges around or how to define charges for those partners. If you're typing away, please hit enter so I can see that there's something coming in. Otherwise, at this point, I understand that there aren't any active questions to work through today. Okay, seeing a thanks in the chat. I appreciate your thoughts there. And I won't keep anyone any longer. I'm not seeing any additional questions. So, folks, please feel free to email me if there are questions that show up beyond today's conversation. If you want to connect about Rapido at your library, have questions, thoughts, happy to connect with you about Rapido at your library. And I'm going to wrap up today's session. Thank you.